Hi, everyone. Welcome to Navigating Workforce Evolution, Generational Impact of Remote, Hybrid, and Return to Work Policies. I'm Casey Skarecki, Sponsorship Sales for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. With us today is the fabulous Judy Saylor, Director of Learning and Development, Primepoint, HRMS, and Payroll. Judy Saylor is the Director of Learning and Development for Primepoint, HR, and Payroll. She holds a master's degree in management and organizational leadership from Springfield College, received her human resources certification from Rutgers University, and is certified SHRM CP and PHR. She has presented for NJBIA, CCSNJ, NJACP, Tri-State SHRM, and Garden State SHRM, and has been featured in Forbes and Jersey Matters. She's well-versed in all aspects of management and leadership. Her passion is staff development. Few housekeeping matters before we get started. Today's program is being recorded and will be emailed to you within a week. I'd like to draw your attention to the question and answer box. Judy would be happy to take your questions at the end, so get them in as they come via the question and answer box. If you have any trouble viewing or hearing during this presentation, don't forget, you will automatically be receiving a recording, so if you just sign out, you can rewatch the recording at your leisure. For those of you who are new to NJBIA, we are the nation's largest statewide business association, representing about 1/4 of New Jersey employees. We offer partner development opportunities and visibility through events, magazine ads, our podcast, and our TV show, as well as money-saving discounts on stuff you're probably already paying for, like payroll, healthcare, 401k solutions, and 24/7 HR support. That's enough about me. But if you're interested, I will drop my contact information and always visit our website. So now, without further ado, Judy, take us away. Thank you.
Sure can. Give me one sec. All righty. So today we're looking at, the generational impacts of remote, hybrid, and return to work policies. And we're gonna kind of go through some of the things that we know we've already been going through, but then we're going to talk about what can we do about it. So Amazon has recently told its employees that it will fire workers who refuse to return to the office 3 days a week or more. The guidance the HR people gave them was that first you have a private conversation with your manager. Second time you have a conversation with your manager, depending on the employee, within 1 to 2 weeks. I put in quotes down here. This conversation will, one, reinforce that return to office 3+ days a week is a requirement of the job, and two, explain that continued non-compliance without a legitimate reason may lead to disciplinary action up to and including termination of your employment. As an HR person, as soon as I read this, I got that moment of, ooh. We have to be very careful how we handle these things, and we have to say the right things if and when we're choosing to make those types of decisions. We have entered in a whole new world when it comes to navigating the staffing realm. And just because someone puts something in writing doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. Doesn't mean that there isn't going to be repercussions in the future. We have been through the great resignation, right? Well, 90% of those folks regret quitting, right? Mental health has declined for those folks. Now we have the great stay. Folks who were ready to quit their jobs when, oh gosh, we may have a recession. I'm not going to leave this job. I'm staying right here. And why? Because as we all have experienced at some point in our lives, last one on, first one off, right? If we go into a recession and there's difficulties, companies may choose to reduce their staff. We don't want to be part of that group. However, 72% of Gen Zs are considering a career change, not just a job change, but a career change. 66% of millennials are thinking, 55% for Gen Xers, and 30% for boomers. And why? We have seen the studies that say, the pandemic, sorry, I'm not going to say those words again, really did have people get some time to think. We are working, we're working, and we love our job, we're working with people, and then all of a sudden this happens, and folks take a pause and they say, is this really what I want to do? And I'll be the first to tell you, I was in youth development for 20 years. And when I had my child, I was like, I can't do both. I have a child. Like, it was different at that stage. I transitioned and pivoted into a new role. And so it happens to folks when they have that time to kind of think about what they want to do. I teach right now for Rider University, and I'm having this conversation with 18 through 21-year-olds. And they are at the point where they're like, oh yeah, I want to be an accountant. And then all of a sudden they come back and they go, oh no, I don't want to be an accountant. I don't really like numbers. I want to work with people. Okay. We need to make sure the next couple generations actually think about what they want to do before they start job hopping, because that is a problem. So in one word, what do you think of when we say remote or hybrid work? At the top of the screen, you can see my information. You use your cell phone to text this, or you can send a message, and you are going to text the message to 22333 with Judy Sailor 862, and you'll be able to enter in your response. So while we're waiting for that, we think about remote and hybrid and in person, and we know that there's a lot of different attitudes towards it. It really all depends on what your mindset is at any given time, right? So right now, for where I work at Primepoint, we are a flexible hybrid option. Most of our folks come in 1 to 3 days a week, and we do trainings those days, and we have, collegial events, we'll have pizza, like those kind of things to keep people connected. Other companies that I'm aware of have moved from, being in person to fully remote, and they stopped their leases on facilities and buildings because they could. Nobody was in the office. They didn't need a space to physically work. Everyone could work where they were. Come on, folks, we need a few more answers in here. So, businesses had made decisions to transition, and now a lot of folks were working to transition back. And this is going to be, money. This is going to be a point where we've got some pinch points, specifically within the law, within the state laws, within the federal laws, to, taxes, for example, and we'll get into that. Saving. Yes, if you were remote, which not everyone here at my job was remote at the time because we do payroll. We had to send out checks. So the packing team, they were here. Okay. Executives, all the executives were physically in the building because if the packing team had to be in, they felt it was their responsibility to be here in the building with them. But for myself, I worked from home and I saved a boatload. I didn't have to drive anywhere. I had a car, but I didn't really have to go anywhere. It saved me a boatload of money during that period of time. Oh, balance, work-life balance. Yes, that is one of the big ones. And in teaching at Rider, I tell them all the time, there's no balancing that. I use the word balance, work-life balance a lot in my conversations. There's no balancing it. You have to determine what that balance means, and everybody's is going to be different. I like the drama. Drama's good. Yes, there's a boatload of drama right now, especially in the let's come back to work scenarios. Now we've got less productivity, but I also saw in the workplace productivity. And so it kind of was the moment where we said, oh, the water cooler isn't always the best option to have around because people would be chatting and they'd go do things, and that would take a lot of time out of their day. So flexible is still the number one thing, and it makes sense to that. It's going to be one of those things that will continue to grow over time in our lives. So the evolution of work policies is very interesting. And I had to go back and do some research on this because in my head, it was in the 2000s that we really started this. No, in 1973, companies started trying to develop telecommuting. And they had this point where the first group was 5 people who had to test this out. And they were working from home. Totally made sense, but literally it was phone calls they were making. That's what their job was. So that's where telecommuting came from. From 83 to 2000, in 1983, 2,000 people were now telecommunicating, and they were at certain categories of positions in a company. And so it behooved them to give this a try. Now, obviously manufacturing, there's certain industries that just can't do that. But in 2000, they decided that we have to have some guidelines around this. How do you decide who's getting paid, what rate? And being in, if you are in one state versus another state, because we know cost of living is different in different states. So the Department of Transportation and related agencies, not sure why they got tapped for this, legitimized remote workers and made it mandatory for companies to have telecommuting policies. That didn't mean you were allowed to do it all the time. It meant they had to have a policy about it. The policy could say, we do not allow this in our company. 2010, the Telework Enhancement Act further came along and gave a little bit greater flexibility when it came to managing remote workforces. It has never been easy managing remote folks, and that workforce it's always going to be a challenge, until we get to a certain stage, and then a whole new crop of new challenges will come along. So how do you start your work week?
Happy Monday, another day living the dream. Password. Now, why is it not working? Oh, I hate Mondays. Look at my calendar. It's gonna be a long week. I just logged in, Cheryl.
Now, oh, my calendar's gonna be a long week. Yes, I'm a Gen Xer. I totally can subscribe to that. And, everybody's at a different place. There is a lot of folks that are poking at that younger generation, and they're not all, we're stereotyping them, and that's not really what all of them are like.
Happy Monday.
So in our generational landscape right now, we've got the silent generation, which, is that the greatest generation. They very patriotic. There are still some of those folks in the workforce, especially when you look at ownership, family-owned companies and so forth. There's where those folks are. Baby boomers, of course, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. And we're going to look at each of those in terms of what is their workplace, what is their work attitude, what is their thought process when it comes to working. So looking at the boomers, they have really mixed feelings about remote work. They could enjoy the flexibility if they are willing to adopt it, but they were raised to be in the office. They were raised to physically be at work. Okay. Many of them were raised like Gen Xers that you didn't leave work until the boss left work. And you were there before the boss got there. That was how you got your points with the boss. It wasn't performance evaluation at that stage. It was being there and quote unquote working, whatever that looked like. They did have some remote work technology. It was phones. That's what they did if they worked from home, and they could, if they could do that. They want a return to work policy. They're growing up, their understanding of professionalism is being in the office. And it makes sense to them for all of us to be in the office, because they're one of the groups that knows if you're not in the office, you're not connecting with other people, you're not growing from things other people said. We learn from each other every day. Sometimes we learn what to do and sometimes we learn what not to do, but it's still a learning experience. So boomers really subscribe to that. They want us to be learning. They want to learn. They've come through the computer age. I'm older than Google. So we've got this moment where now we're trying to transition into the next phase of work, and some folks just are not ready for that. This is where they're at. They were shaped by the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, and Watergate. So they've got some significant things where we follow the rules, we like order, We like things to work in a specific way. Gen Xers, they have really mixed emotions about being remote, hybrid, or in person. And their biggest thing is they grew up and learned that you needed FaceTime with the boss. That's what helps you to get your next promotion. That's what helps you to get into the next phase. 61%, according to Gallup, won't look for another job if required to be in person. They'll just go into the office. We like rules. We like things to be balanced. You know, we're the ones who started that I want work-life balance. And we have corporate norms in our mind. You know, it was in-person relationship building. We have meetings. We talk to the boss. We have a level of respect for different categories of people within the office. We learn to be really nice to secretaries and facilities people because they're the ones that know everything and they will help you out if you feed them. The tough part is that we're the sandwich generation, and I am fully one of them. I have a 16-year-old child, and I have 2 sets of grandparents that I will ultimately be responsible for. So my work-life balance, really liked remote work because I was able to get more balance with that and more time with having lunch with the kid and, doing activities and seeing, not in the height of the pandemic, but after the pandemic, dropped off. I said, I wasn't gonna say that again, to see the grandparents more. So it's a tough balance for me being at the office and the driving and all those extra things. But I was raised, you go to the office. That's where you work. That's where your computer is. Well, we've got a computer everywhere now, of course, but it's different. We were shaped by the AIDS epidemic. We were shaped by the fall of the Berlin Wall. And we saw a lot of our parents lose money in the dot-com age. We saw them lose their jobs. We saw them lose jobs where in the past you were supposed to retire from these places. And that's different. So Gen Xers, we're not necessarily going to sit still if we see something coming along. And then there's the millennials. They really want work-life balance. They took what we said and they were like, nope, I'm not going to work like my parents are or have. 49% want to be fully remote. They are career driven and they're much more financially motivated. They are a group that is willing to jump jobs to get to the next level. Okay. And they learned that they make a mistake if they stay in one place too long. Some of the folks that I've spoken to in my research is that, you see online, especially TikTok. If you're not on TikTok, at least get on it and start looking at what people are saying. There's a lot going on in terms of HR and business. And these young people tell everything because to them, knowledge is power. These folks get a job and, they have their wage and they work there for 10 years and their wage has gone up incrementally. And then someone new comes in. Well, the wage brackets have changed and that person now comes in at the same rate as the person who's been there for 10 years. And so these folks have all started to talk and they're like, quit your job every 3 years and get a new job. And what does that do for you? And we're going to talk about that because retention's a killer. They like to work independently. They like their own autonomy. The difficulty for millennials and Zs is they need a lot of stimulation. Yes, TikTok, set a timer for yourself. Everyone's attention span has dropped from like 12 seconds to 7 seconds. And, between texting and tweeting and all the social media things, folks are not attuned to what is going on around them a lot of times. And so that need for stimulation, we've got to come up with a way to keep them engaged and not looking for other stimulation while they're working. The Gen Zs, they actually want to work in the office. Only 27% of them want to be fully remote. According to Gallup polls, they're very disengaged. They are the most disengaged group, which is interesting because they're so connected. They have so much more connection than I ever did as a young person. I'm still of the generation that had the phone on the wall with the big long cord to it. How many of you remember that? They can text, tweet, message, Discord, video game to all of their friends at any given time. I'm not, it is an oxymoron then for them to be so disengaged. They don't connect to the other staff around them. They are hearing, and we are too, that, you know, there's this stereotype about them. So they're not connecting to us as older adults. They're losing out. And so are we. Ultimately, I tell my students at Ryder, I've said to them multiple times, I need all of you to get full-time jobs so I can retire. And I've put that into their heads because I need them to understand I am passing on knowledge to them so that they can get full-time jobs so I can retire. And that's how we want to look at this. We have got to think about true succession planning. Where do we want folks to go? How do we want to move them up? Is it training? Is it leadership? What are we going to do to help them to be so engaged and want to be here that it's going to be a positive experience for them? They do suffer from high stress and burnout. And some of that I will tell you is our fault. You know, these are the millennials and the Gen Zs are the ones that everybody got a trophy when they played the sport. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's something necessarily wrong with it. But when you aren't getting a trophy, when you aren't seeing the rewards of your labor, that stress and burnout come quickly. And if no one's there to guide you to understand it, it only gets worse. They really like things that are value driven to them. They have a social conscience. You know, I was raised by parents who were about the environment. And so I'm about the environment. Well, all of that trickles down, as we all know. And so my child is one who is very much about clean water and clean this. And he is much more about it than I was, and I'm much more about it than my mom was. So we're trickling some of that consciousness down. They care about people more. They care about people who are in a worse position than they are. They're still not engaging with their adult peers around them. They're only sticking to their own groups. So 50% of employees aged millennials and younger reported having mental health challenges and or substance abuse issues. We locked everybody away for our safety. And that is a byproduct of that. You know, if folks don't have a resource to get support, we turn to stupid things. 53% of millennials with a hybrid schedule said they would look for another job if their employers ordered them back to work full time. And for whatever reason, folks feel that it's like, I'm not getting what I want, I'm out. Well, yeah, that only works so long. Recruiters and HR folks will ask, can you explain this gap in your work? Can you explain this gap in your work? And unless they've been coached or trained with someone on how to answer those questions, they're going to open their mouth and put their foot right in it. We have to think about, how do we retain these young people? How do we give them what they need? And I am not saying to allow everybody to remote. Let me start right there. The in-the-office mandates are coming.
Hey team, I have an important announcement to make and pretty excited about this one. But leadership has informed us that starting next month, we'll have to be back into the office 4 days a week. Did they give like some rationale for that? Yeah, I think they mentioned it's vital for our culture and our shared goals. Gotcha. So please tell me you're joking right now. Please tell me. Well, certainly not joking, but Cruz, think of this. Think of all the water cooler conversations you could be having. We just don't have that now. Okay, and what about our productivity? It's way better than what it used to be, like even pre-pandemic. Does have a good point. I don't know. I don't make the rules, and I've seen a lot of studies saying that we're not productive, but it's just more about we're not as connected as a company. I thought maybe 1 or 2 days stops was pretty reasonable, but 4 seems kind of crazy. Well, we'll see how long this lasts, and hopefully half our company doesn't leave. But yeah, let's kick things off here.
Every generation is going to have its own opinion of what mandates are. And the reality behind it is we do have to be concerned about this and how it's going to be managed. Right now, if you look at the number of, or the percentages of people by age that are in the workforce, you know, our highest group right now is the boomers. They're ready to retire. And it's not a bad thing. Like, they've earned it. They've worked. I'm hoping to retire. Like, I'm working my butt off to make sure I get to where I want to be. We've known that Gen X is one of the smallest groups in terms of number of people. There's only 19% of us in the workforce, according to this. And that doesn't necessarily bode well. You know, when you have a group that starts to migrate out, and we've seen this over time, you have to have enough people to backfill it who are trained, who have that succession planning, who learn this is how we handle this. The minute somebody walks out of your building, there's institutional knowledge that you lose. And so, you know, do you work to keep them? Do you work to make it so that, you know, we're giving them what they need so they can thrive and become the next type of manager that we're looking for? So each generation has a mindset, and this comes from a book by Tim Elmore. It's called Cracking the Code. I found it to be fascinating. There's a podcast, there's, you know, some online things. If you get a chance, go and look at it, because it will make you understand your staff and where they're coming from. You know, the silent generation is just be grateful you had a job. They had, you know, the stock market crash, they survived the depression. You know, be thankful you have a job. Okay. Baby boomers, I deserve more. They watch their parents have to survive the depression. They want more. Okay. They were raised by folks who survived the depression. So not for nothing. And I love them dearly, but they wash aluminum foil in Ziploc bags. And they were the first recyclers. They were the ones who kicked that off, and nobody gives them credit for that. Gen Xers, keep it real. Don't lie to me. You know, I've loved being in HR, you'll sit with somebody, you know, a manager, a supervisor, or someone, and you're just listening to them and you're like, stop, like, just tell me what's going on, because we're dancing here. Just keep it real. Give me the honest facts. To millennials, life is a cafeteria, because that's what they're used to. They can pick something from column A and something from column B, and they can add this later. And, you know, that's how they see their health insurance, which is not really how health insurance works, as we all know. So they're looking for more opportunities, and they want to select things, and they're much more project-based. They prefer that. They do like challenges. Gen Z is hoping and coping. They want to be in the office because they want to be around people. They don't want to be working from home as much. They're hoping that things will improve. They're hoping that they're going to be able to make the grade and the cut and whatever else you want to call it. And for them, it's a big deal to be able to have an office with a door. It's a big deal to be tapped to be in certain meetings. They like that. That gives them a sense of, you know, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm going to be that next person that I want to be. Tim Elmore does some great work if you want to look at it. So another thing to look at, and I looked at this in terms of what are the percentages and why does it matter? When we look at who is doing the big items, you see a lot of Gen X, okay? Generating revenue, 57% of Gen Xers are bringing in the revenue in your companies. Why? Because we learned how to build relationships. We learned how to sell and not be a salesperson. We learned how to promote our company. We were taught how to promote ourselves because we had to. They do relationship building like it is 100% their job. And guess what? It's everybody's job, but they focus on it. And I think some of that comes from, again, how you were reared. You know, in the Gen X day and age, whoever was out front of your house was your best friend, and off you went. We made friends with everybody. There wasn't anybody you couldn't talk to. So we're seeing some of the skills that need to be transferred down right on this screen here, right? Executive presence, that's the boomers. We need them to transfer down And maybe it's, I don't know, a 3-credit course at college that teaches folks professionalism. I'm doing my best with my college kids, but I will tell you, they struggle with, verbs and using, I asked him what to do, and that they don't spell. We're not teaching spelling anymore. So we're going to have to help these guys through this process if we're going to expect to have that, level of presence. That presence is that strong, confident, knows my company, knows my business, can talk fluently about it, doesn't stumble over things. Adaptability, again, Gen Xers, and that's a skill that really has to be taught. We see everyone had a different experience when it came to that period of time that I'm not going to repeat again. And it was easy to adapt for some folks and harder for others. There were some who it was, the end of the world, and they couldn't manage. And then there were others who were like, okay, I can get my job done. My kid's safe. My family's safe. We're going to keep moving. We have to come up with ways to be adaptable and then problem solve. I tell my rider kids all the time, and you should tell everybody you ever interview, I'm going to hire you for 2 reasons. 1, because you think, and 2, because you can problem solve. I have told my college kids, and I'm sorry if I've ever spoken to one of your children, that the degree they're getting and that they're going to show to an employer is important because it shows that you have the tenacity to do the job, that you were able to accomplish these tasks. But in a company, they're going to teach you how they want things done. You can be an accountant and you have your accounting textbook and you know all those things, and you get into a business and that's not how they're going to manage it. That's not the terminology they're going to use. And a lot of folks get hung up on that because they think, well, no, this is the word. No, this is our word, what we use internally. And we all have those internal vocabularies that we don't necessarily use outside in the world. So this is where we've got to give that, train them to be able to problem solve. And then the last part is collaboration. And however, my college kids, they don't want a group project for all the tea in China. And all I keep telling them is, just so you know, work's a group project. There's going to be the person who doesn't show up at all and is going to get the same raise you get. There's going to be the person who will just sit there and say, tell me what you want me to do, because they don't want to be in charge of it, but they want it done. And then there's going to be the person that, will fight you the whole time. We are a group project. I am in a department of 1. I still have people I have to deal with, and that's a group project. And so we've got to think about, how do we collaborate? And a lot of folks want to be on that island by themselves doing their own thing. And that is not how work works. It doesn't matter to me what company you are with. You could be a sole proprietor of 1. You are still in a group project with vendors and clients, and it's still all there. So we have heard a lot about the stressors of work and about mental health. And, when I saw this, I thought, oh, this is a good way to kind of enhance or make clear what is going on in the world. For Gen X, I'm going to start there. That workload stressor for them is like 31%. Work-life boundaries is 25%. I tell professional folks, if you are using your personal cell phone for work, when you are not working, you don't have to answer them. And I know some people are not going to be happy with that, saying that, but there are times where it's your personal time. You are an employee, you get personal time still. Job security is one of those things that Gen X is always thinking about. And what are the expectations? And then that last piece, the lack of time. I have often said, if I could add 2 more hours to the day, I'd get a lot more done. And it's really about the time you lose between things and how do you manage that. Millennials, again, workload. Everybody's concerned about workload, which either means we don't have enough people to do the jobs, or we don't know what a normal workload looks like. And we could have a normal workload, but we don't think it is. You know, my child is 16. He's a junior in high school. He has no homework whatsoever. I can remember doing at least an hour of homework minimum when I came home from school. And I'm old, I get it. But, you know, I'll say to him, well, just sit down and study. What does study mean? And I'm like, reread all your materials. Well, that's reading. That's not studying. We're not teaching kids those kind of expectations and you know, time management. It's just not there right now. And we need to, as parents, I know we're all working on that, but I can recall being in school and having someone talk to us specifically about, you know, here's how you study. Here's your big thought. Here's your little thought. And that kind of, how do I take notes and how do I go back and remind myself of these things? Millennials really suffer with the lack of direction and often the lack of knowledge. We're not giving enough information to them. And I have worked with folks who are very concerned about losing their job, and they hold all of the information to themselves and they don't share it. And you know what? That's not how you keep your job. You keep your job by working well with everybody and helping a company grow. You want to make more money. The company wants to make more money. That's just one of those things. With Gen Z, it's about expectations. And, you know, they had an expectation when they were young and they've moved up and they still want those gold stars. You know, yes, in my generation, we had gold stars as kids in school, but those faded out at a certain stage. There are still places where they're getting those gold stars and they want to know that they've met the expectation. Some managers, Gen X and boomers especially, need to learn more to compliment or acknowledge when someone has done something right. We learned at other people's knees that the only time you talk to somebody is when they did wrong or you needed to correct them or address what they were doing. We didn't learn right off the bat that you should be complimenting people and acknowledging the work that they've done. Again, we've got the workload and the lack of direction. And lack of direction can be across the board. You know, you get a new job as a Gen Xer or a boomer and you move into that new job and you get there and somebody goes, okay, so here's your computer and here's your stuff and here's your email and here's your login. I'll get back to you in a little while. What are you supposed to do? And this is where companies need to identify what your onboarding orientation is supposed to look like. What are the steps that we need to make sure are happening? How do we make this work? So everyone has their opinion of what environments they want to work in too. And we know for a fact that most of us, you know, there's a lot of folks who would like to be remote only. There's a lot of folks who want a balance of things. If able to, you know, probably 2/3 of your workforce would be remote. And again, they're not learning then. They're not engaged with everybody when they're not in the building or not working with them. And being on Zoom is just different. You know, it's like I tell my college kids, emails and text messages you have to be very careful of. There's no context to it. There's no tone of voice. There's nothing there to give you a clue as to what this really means that you're receiving. Oops. So we've come to this revolution, as it's been called, and we realize that there are currently 12% of all full-time employees working from home and only 28% working a hybrid model. The projections that we're seeing say that 32 million Americans will work remotely by 2025. That's not what businesses are looking for. And that's the trend. That's what we're seeing across the globe in terms of how do people work. And that means we're going to have to make adjustments. We're going to have to work on how do we do this so that it's safe for our company, that it's being managed, and that folks are learning and engaged. Salesmen have been working remotely all their lives. If they can do it, it can be done. Remote work has had a big impact, positive and negative, right? So on the negative side, we see less interaction with staff. We do see a reduction in innovation, primarily because people aren't together talking, right? Some people, you need that kind of conversation to get to that next point. We see forced collaboration, and that's hard because people really don't want to do it. Put them in that group project and they put the brakes on. We go from silos and then fragmented networks, right? We're not really connected to all the right people that we need to be connected to. And we don't know that because you don't know what you don't know. On the other side of it, productivity went up by 62%. It's better. Operating costs are better. Why? People got rid of their leases. They don't have to lease furniture. They changed their model. You save money. And 52% of employee collaboration within and across functions is worse. That's the bigger point. And we know there are different models to this. So it could be that the model that someone has chosen isn't working for them. We've got the fixed hybrid model, and this is where it's specific, right? So like for here, a couple of our teams, they come in 1 day a week. They're out the rest of the week. It's fixed. They know specifically the day they will be in. The flexible one, I can come and go based on what I'm working on for the week. I may need to be at an event. I may need to be somewhere else. I may need to go work with someone else. The concept of office first hybrid work is interesting to me. Either you're coming in, in the morning and then you leave at 12, or the reverse of that, you work from home and then you come in at lunch. There are folks who do job sharing that they're doing that. I think it's good if you can manage it, but it's still driving. You're still doing the rest of the work time and concepts that go with being in and out of the office. So what type of work environment do you have right now? And you're going to use, again, that text up at the top. So we've got in-person, flexible, hybrid, flexible, fixed hybrid, remote first hybrid, office first hybrid, or none of the above. Oh, flexible. Ooh. Goes quick in here as folks are answering. An even split. Whoa. All right, we got a few more folks that need to answer. Okay, so it looks like most of us right now have fixed hybrid. I'm interested that we have a couple with office first hybrid. That's interesting. Offline, I'd love to know how that's working for you. It's easy to see why, the flex is work and why there's so many. Oh, we're still shifting. In person, I'm sure is potentially connected to what that company does, right? We need to work or meet people where they're at and what they need. All right. So how do you write your return to work policy? There are some very specific steps that we should look at, right? So first, you're stating the purpose. You want to define the scope. Are you flex hybrid? Are you fixed hybrid? Are you not hybrid at all? Put it in writing. Determine eligibility. Is everybody eligible? Clearly, the folks in our packing department who send out paychecks, they're not eligible. We would love to share with everybody, but that's just not going to be possible. Specify what the return date is and any staggered schedules. Is this team going to start first and then we're going to move in? Here at Primepoint, we have a difficulty because we don't have enough computer stations because folks work from home also. So that's one of the reasons why we are on this flexible kind of plan. Address any training or reorientation needed for employees. Some folks change their copiers, us as one of them, and I can't use the new thing for all the tea in China. I cannot figure it out. I ask other people to help me. It doesn't like me. The old one liked me. Discuss any job changes or duties that are going to change. And ensure IT has all the equipment, right? So, can you separate an employee who chooses not to return to work? This is going to be a bit right off the bat. No, this is going to be a little bit controversial. We need some answers. I'm gonna put in my answer. Oh, yes, no, 50-50. Now we're there. Oh, couple more. Well, got a couple more already. Anybody else? All right, so 60% say yes and 40 say no. Now, a couple things to think about. Right now, New Jersey has I checked this morning, 4.4% unemployment rate. We're an at-will state. If someone refuses not to come back to work without any other information, you can separate them from your company. You need to have put into place a policy in writing, all those steps that I gave you. You need to make sure every employee has received it, make them sign off on it. And without any other information, you can separate them. We're an at-will state. I did ask a lawyer to be clear so that everyone knows. I wanted to be sure because in my brain, it was, yeah, we can let people go.
Half the team laid off. It's double the workload. How are we gonna manage this? Where's my stress level? I regret to inform you. No. Okay, I'm not on it. So Rebecca, you joking? Half the team's gone? At least it was me. Our season is on us. Just had to let them go. Not a good look on the company. We need to regroup this team. It's not got that risk. I need to update my resume. It's been too long. He's getting broke. I didn't even like them anyways. Good bunch. Let's get an email to the team. Update. Business. Keep moving forward. Oh my God, response is deactivated. I gotta text her. Telling them to job hop, they don't listen to me. Not next month.
So if someone comes to you and says, I'm not going to be coming back to work, you have to determine why the employee is requesting not to work. Contact your attorney. Make sure they are going to be amiable to this because they might not going to lie. Look at it through the lens of ADA, right? So request or accommodation. And the reason I say that is because at some point someone will use ADA as one of their options. I have a heart condition, I have this, I have that. And legitimately, you have to go through that interactive process to determine, can I really let this person go? If they don't have any ADA requests, if everyone has been treated equally, if the policy is clear and everyone has received it and someone is refusing to come back to work for no other reason other than they don't want to, they can be let go. And I know a lot of you are spinning right now. I checked this, I double checked it because in my head, I kept thinking, we're an at-will state, we're an at-will state, we're an at-will state. Now, if you want to work with people, that's completely up to you. But in terms of HR, your HR directors are going to say our little mantra, do for one, do for all. And that's where the tough part comes. As soon as you say, oh, okay, well, you can have off, you can have off, you can have a half a day on Fridays. Then everybody gets a half a day off on Fridays. You can't, pick and choose who's going to get a benefit. That someone is going to claim discrimination, and you don't need that at this stage in the game. So we want to bridge that generational gap in order to get everyone working together. And this is where we need to drop those stereotypes. And we, as the leadership, need to drop it first, right? So we're looking at leadership. We're looking at the purpose and the culture. We need mentoring. We would want to have seasoned employees, and that doesn't mean they're boomers or Gen Xers. That means they've been there for a while. Work with new employees and engage them, teach them, you know, the internal language, teach them the things that they need to know to work through the office. New ways of working. We have to get collaboration back on board. Nobody is an island, and nobody should be working, you know, on a project that is significant without another set of eyes, at least. I always say to people, Steinbeck had an editor. I will write things and I will send it to 2 or 3 people, and literally my email says, please make sure this is English and you understand it. Because some days the looks like it's spelled wrong to me. It's not, it just looks it for whatever reason. We need to get folks to adapt to the roles and the structures. You know, there are points, there are companies who chose to make a flat standard. They were the executive and everyone reported to them. That is not functional. That is something that will make it very hard for folks to function. Someone has raised their hand. Hi, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, can you talk? Not sure what happened. Okay. We need to think about workspaces and systems, right? So we've moved everybody off site. Well, we downsized this and changed this, and now we have different computer systems and so forth. So we've got to figure out how that's going to work. One of the biggest things that I see is the styles of communication. So, you know, there are folks who speak or present in a stronger way than others, right? They're not, in my world, it would be through a product called Color Code, and they're not warm and fuzzy. We've got to think about that. And of course, we need diversity of all different types. So retention matters. And this is where, if we want to keep people, you may have to choose to work with them. You know, it could be 6 to 9 months of a person's salary to replace them. That's a killer, especially for mid-sized companies. When a disengaged employee, you know, the cost for them could be anywhere from $3,400 to $10,000. And you don't want to be losing money at a point in time right now. Couple of things to think about is location. If you have remote employees who are working in other states, you may have to look at that tax obligation. They may need to look at tax obligation for where they are versus where you are. Pay adjustments. For some states, if you're going to hire, you know, an engineer in Ohio versus an engineer in California, that salary base could be different, and people need to understand that. And then, of course, time zone meetings. Like, how do you get everybody together if you've got folks on California and you got folks on Jersey? It does get difficult at a certain point. So what are future trends that we're seeing in HR? Employees and companies are probably going to find some compromise in the hybrid workforce. And it's going to take time. It's not going to be right now. Like, we're still got to get there. Growing attention is coming dramatically on employee well-being. We're seeing new insurance policies. We're seeing mental health care. It's going to change. You're going to see freelance platforms gaining a lot more traction. They are moving fast, and I can't get over the volume of products that are out there right now. Companies are going to rely on what we call bossware to track remote workers' productivity. I work at Primepoint. We're a technology company. I know our cybersecurity guy can look at my screen at any point in the day. He's probably going to be bored with what I'm working on versus what he's working on, but he can do that. I signed off on that when I became an employee. Cybersecurity becomes the #1 priority. You work from home, you do work on your cell phone. You know, we know that hackers get into everything that they can humanly possibly get into. We've got to be more careful. Every company that I know of right now is using a phishing test to make sure that people don't click on the wrong things. And guess what? I know technology people that click on the wrong things. So if you do it, it's okay. Make sure you talk to the cyber folks right away. And companies really are going to have to strive to keep culture and collaboration alive in the remote workforce. It's going to be up to us to figure it out. The staff are not going to figure it out. The college kids don't figure it out. I have to get them to talk to each other and work together. It's just how it goes. So what can you do? Review your company's remote work policies. Have a very firm guideline and explain the risk of not communicating a move. You should not have a staff person who moves to another state and you don't know about it. Know the laws of the state staff are working or assigned to. Require notification of residents every quarter. Have a communication plan. If you have a breakdown in one state, right? Computers go out, servers go out, etc. What's your communication plan going to be in the rest of your company? How do you do that? And it needs to be, you know, a best case scenario, a worst case scenario. I used to work for a man here in New Jersey at a resident camp, and he had a plan for what to do in a tsunami. And I thought to myself, we're not even near the beach. Why are we worried about tsunami? You have to have those plans. You don't know what could come. Have multiple contact points. Have managers reach out to people individually. Have them talk to them as a team. Give feedback. Most folks are really trying to work hard and do a good job. And sometimes they may need support, and sometimes we're not really good about asking for that help. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Judy. That was fabulous. I mean, it covers so many things. I did have one quick question. I know we're running out of time, but do you recommend a training for, say, a Generation X manager that is managing millennials and Gen Zers? Would it be the same training for their employees? You know what I mean?
A manager's training would be different because we really, as managers, have to drop the bias, you know, and that's hard. We've got a stereotype in our head. So we've got to drop that, and we've got to look at people for people. It would be the same training for both of those groups. They're very similar in their output and their take. But it would behoove that to be acknowledged in that training so that folks don't feel like they're being left out.
Excellent. So, yeah, we're running right up here. Do you have any last words or thoughts before you?
No, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. I will be sending the PowerPoint over to NJBIA, and I'm sure they'll get that out to you. And if nothing else, have a great week.
Oh, thank you so much, Judy. It is really interesting. As a mom of a 21-year-old who is just entering the workforce, I find it very interesting. It's a very resilient generation that is coming up with a lot of the things that they have seen. So thank you for your insight. So that's all the time we have. I want to thank everyone again. I want to thank Judy very much. And don't forget, everyone will be receiving a recording of this in your email in about a week. And join us for our next webinar, Why Mental Health Matters, on November 30th. And to register, you can visit us at njbia.org. So until next time, for Judy Saylor of Primepoint HR and Payroll, I'm Casey Skarecki. Thank you for being with us today, and I wish you a fabulous rest of your day. See you soon. Thank you all so much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.